And 600 UT faculty members are speaking out against President Jay Hartzell, saying he's, quote, violated their trust. KVUE's Isabella Basco is in the KVUE newsroom. Isabella, the professor signed a letter condemning the president and the university's response to the protests on campus.
That's right, Ashley. In an op-ed for the Houston Chronicle, President Jay Hartzell says it's their foremost responsibility to keep their community safe. But other professors beg to differ with the approach. Shock is what Jorge Canizares Esguerra, a faculty member in UT Austin's history department, felt when hearing the protests outside his office.
And I began to notice the force and the violence that was being applied, and said this is disproportionate. I mean, it makes no sense.
They are sentiments shared by Stacy Sowards, a communication professor.
I was appalled by the APD, Austin Police Department, and state troopers' presence on our campus, and the seemingly violent interactions that they've had with students and protesters on the campus.
That's why the two of them, along with hundreds of other faculty members, signed this letter to President Hartzell. It cites two issues with Hartzell. The first is the university's removal of more than 40 faculty and staff members after the state's passage of Senate Bill 17, which bans diversity, equity, and inclusion offices at public universities in Texas.
There's a lot of policing of language around DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion as well, and so that's another concern.
The letter also condemns Hartzell and the university's response to the recent pro-Palestine protests on campus, saying the president has shown himself to be unresponsive to urgent faculty, staff, and student concerns.
I think that he's in a hot seat right now, and there's a lot of calls for his resignation. I would support that.
KVUE News reached out to a UT Austin spokesperson for an interview with Hartzell. They declined, but in an op-ed for the Houston Chronicle, Hartzell writes in part, "This was no longer a traditional assembly or protest. By the plain language of our rules, it was criminal trespassing."
This is public property. There is no justification to what happened. Whether they are outsiders, insiders, students, no students.
Taking their outrage and turning it into demands for their university to drop criminal charges against those arrested, and for the school to respect the First Amendment free speech rights of students and faculty on campus. And today we're also seeing support for Hartzell and the university's response to the protests. Now, Alums for Campus Fairness, that's an organization which counters anti-Semitism, sent a letter to the UT administration thanking them for their commitment to maintaining a safe environment on all the campuses, calling their leadership stable guidance. That letter will be printed in full-page ads in the Austin American Statesman and the Dallas Morning News on Sunday morning. Live in the newsroom, Isabella Basco for KVUE News.